Hello everybody, this is John. Welcome to the NCGA Valent Ag Weather Outlook, February 4th, 2017. You know what? You're going to be hearing me talk a lot about soil moisture levels because this time of year, even though it's only February, I guess maybe a little wishful thinking early to February here, thinking about spring. But really, if we get some strong anomalies this time of the year, either too wet or too dry, this can last into the spring months. And I know the last couple of years we've had some problems with getting into the fields due to soggy type soils, so I'm really watching that. Now, right now we do have adequate soil moisture in most areas. We have a couple areas that are unusually wet, but for the most part across the Midwest, soil moisture is pretty close to normal. We have a couple areas that need a little bit more moisture. That would be Missouri and parts of Illinois, smaller parts of southeast Iowa as well. The other thing is that I've noticed here is cold air that pushes down is just not that cold. And I think that's telling us something here that we just have a hard time getting that real cold air down here. I know this past week models were showing some much colder air. And then as it actually got down here, it was still cold, but it's just very short-lived, maybe 2 or 3 days. And then we're returning back to, I think, what's the underlying time pattern for most areas, which is mild type weather. So let's look at precipitation over the last 7 days. And what we see here is we see a generally quiet week. I said it'd be a quite quiet week over most parts of the middle part of the nation. The exception was this band of precipitation right through here, and that did come in the form of snow. And if we look at that, we can see 4 to 6 inches of snow, locally heavier, across parts of northern Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Michigan. Everywhere else, not a whole lot. Now, where we look at where we have snow in the ground, what you can see here is we still have a pretty good amount of snow in North Dakota, smaller parts of South Dakota, northern Minnesota, good part of Wisconsin, and then over into the Michigan and the eastern northeast U.S., as well as long parts of the higher elevations of the Appalachians. There are going to be some changes to that, I think. I'll be talking about that later this week, but I do think we will be melting quite a bit of that over the next week or so. But the snow anomaly, we still have a lot less snow on the ground than normal in these areas in orange. I'll also be talking about that this week as far as what that might mean for temperatures. Now, the only area that has more snow on the ground than normal is the upper Midwest, upper plains, and then the western U.S., including higher elevations where we've really had an increase in snow this year compared to last year's. That's very important as far as water supply. Now, soil moisture gets more and more important as we get into this time of year because the lingering impacts, either too much or not enough, can linger into spring and cause some problems with agriculture. I wanted to bring to your attention a couple areas here. First of all, the area that's been getting quite a bit of snow right along that Iowa, Minnesota, Wisconsin border. That area in blue is unusually wet. Then we have another area of the Midwest ag growing region. The parts of Missouri, Illinois, southeast Iowa, we could use some more precipitation in that area. The rest of the key ag growing regions of the Midwest are in pretty good shape at this time, not too much moisture, and most areas have enough. Look at California, though. Soils are actually wet over California. We have not seen that for a long time, for many years, several years now, as that drought has been broken, and now we're looking at quite wet soils in many areas. As far as the southeast U.S., we still need a bit more rain over the northern part of Alabama, northern Georgia, parts of North Carolina and South Carolina. But over the southern area here, soils are wetter, been more rainfall in that area. Now this week I want to talk a little bit about the Pacific North American Oscillation. I haven't really talked about that much this winter. And I'm going to show you we're going from a negative to a positive. We're going to have a transition or a shift here. And when we get into a positive P&A, the main defining factor, or one of them I should say, is this ridge of high pressure that pushes over the west, and that'll bring warmer temperatures. But usually when we get that ridge of high pressure developing over the west, we get a resulting trough of low pressure over the east with colder temperatures. Now this is not going to be a classic P&A, positive P&A. There could be some traits with it, but I wanted to sort of start off and describe that. So this is that transition. This week we're going to be mainly in the early part of this week in this negative phase. We're going to very quickly get into a strong positive phase towards February 13th through 15th time frame. So let's look at that transition here. Here's the Jetstream this week. For the most part, it's fairly close to where it should be, moving from west to east, and that's generally a pretty quiet pattern. One area that wouldn't be quiet, when we get this flow very strong onshore, that's when we get enhancement of precipitation. We've seen that in the last number of weeks. So temperatures for the first 5 days here, the cold air is becoming more and more confined back to where we've seen it all winter long over the upper plains, northern plains, upper Midwest region. There's one storm track this week, and that's going to be this one right here. This is on Tuesday, moving from the southwest to the northeast up towards the Great Lakes. As far as precipitation goes, look at the west coast again. Lots of rain, excessive rain, that's going to produce the possibility of flash flooding and debris flow along the western third of Washington State, Oregon, and California, Northern California. Otherwise, precipitation is not all that impressive. There could be some over the Ohio Valley, but nothing all that exciting. As far as that one surface low, there will be some heavy snow over parts of the upper Midwest, northern parts of North Dakota, across northern Minnesota and Wisconsin this week. I wanted to mention that snow, though, could get 4 to 6 inches in a few spots. That's that area here, the lighter shade. So it could be heavy, but it's going to be confined to a smaller area. Okay, now we get into that 6 to 10 day, and this looks a little bit more like that positive PNA. We're building the ridge over the western U.S., but it's really, we don't see too much blue here, so it's not really digging all that deep over the eastern U.S. So we look at temperatures here, we start to get more of a gradient here. Temperatures over the eastern half of the U.S. are close to normal, western part of the U.S. well above normal. So this is that positive PNA type pattern. The Jetstream is going to be moving like this, dipping here, but right now it's not showing a strong dip. This is 6 to 10 days out. That could change. It could be a little bit stronger, and then we get more blue, and temperatures could be below normal. I do think there's that tendency to be a little bit cooler than normal, but not excessively so. Then we get into the 11 to 15 day range here. Still is a positive PNA, but if you remember my graph, it's diminishing. It's not all that strong. So temperatures, not a whole lot of change. Generally, half the country near to well above normal temperatures, as in red. Eastern U.S., probably close to normal temperatures. Okay, precipitation, week 1. Well, here we go. I think the big story this week is going to be the West Coast with significantly above normal precipitation, excessive rainfall, snow at higher elevations, and again, that risk for flooding. Then over the southeast U.S., quite dry, a strong dry anomaly. Not much relief for that area in Missouri, Iowa, Illinois that could use a bit more rain. That looks like it's going to be a dry week. And then we have the snow over the upper Midwest, this green anomaly, and that's going to affect parts of the northeast U.S. as well. Right now for week 2, models are showing a very quiet week, generally normal or below normal precipitation over most parts of the nation. Really no relief again over that central part of the U.S. that could use more rain. Over the southeast U.S., perhaps a bit of rain here and there over northern Alabama and Georgia, but not enough to make a whole lot of difference that I see at this time. Let's take a peek at weeks 3 and 4 just to see if there's any change. And remember, this is way out there. This can change very radically at times. But right now, weeks 3 or 4, very strong signal for above normal temperatures over almost the entire nation. Precipitation, more rain over the western U.S. Right now, it is showing a chance of some more precipitation over the southeast U.S. So as far as the takeaway from today's briefing, overall, I think it's going to be a fairly quiet and mild week over most areas. Over the western part of the ag corn belt, milder temperatures, maybe significantly mild in some areas. That's going to melt some of that snow. And then over the eastern part, not as much above normal, but still nothing as far as real cold air, at least this week. I do think the precipitation is going to be mainly the biggest action area will be the Great Lakes snow. Other than that, most areas pretty quiet. Ohio Valley, Eastern Corn Belt, some modest rainfall. Have a great week. If you have any questions, let me know, and I'll be talking with you again next weekend.